Hello. Okay, for the next part, it's not just find sine 2 theta, cosine 2 theta, tan 2 theta. You can solve, you can simplify. They can add these identities in any question, in simplifying, in verifying, in solving. Solve means you have to find theta. Solve means you will have to refer to the unit circle and find theta. As we know, solve means, so I'm gonna keep my unit circle ready and you can keep yours ready as well. Okay, so what will I do as a first step over here? Okay, I got the unit circle. So what will I do? I don't know what can I do with this, but I know now what is sine 2 theta. Sine 2 theta is 2 sine theta cosine theta. Okay, and I'll take this to the left side, minus cosine theta. Please do not cancel trigonometric functions together because you will lose answers. I will show you how at the end. So here, if I take cosine theta as a common factor, I'll be left with 2 sine theta minus 1 equals to 0. Now I will start saying maybe this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. So once cosine theta is equal to 0, when? And 2 sine theta minus 1 equals to 0 when? So when does cosine theta equal to 0 on my unit circle? This is the unit circle. When is cosine theta equals to 0? Cosine theta is equal to 0 here and here. Okay, every pi, once I write this is pi over 2, so pi over 2 plus pi, it's 3 pi over 2 plus pi or minus pi. Anyways, cosine is 0 here and there only, okay? So for now, cosine theta is equal to 0 at pi over 2 and at 3 pi over 2, okay? For these questions, I think, just a second, they mentioned the interval. They mentioned, yeah, on the interval 0, 2 pi. If they mentioned on the interval 0, 2 pi, okay, then you do not have to do anything. Just get the answers from one unit circle and that's it. If they didn't mention, you will need to start saying pi over 2 plus n pi's, and n is just an integer. So maybe pi over 2 plus pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2 plus 3 pi, and so on. But هنا they want just the answers that are on the unit circle. When is cosine theta equal to 0 on the unit circle? At pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. Okay, this one is 2 sine theta equals to 1 and sine theta equals to half. When does sine theta equal to half on my unit circle? Here's my unit circle again. When does the sine is the y, remember? When is it equal to half? It's here, pi over 6, it's half. And when is sine positive? Also over here. So at pi over 6 and at 5 pi over 6. Pi over 6 and 5 pi over 6. This is the answer. Theta is equal to pi over 6 or 5 pi over 6. How can you check your answers? You can substitute in the equation here and here, and the equation must be equal to each other. Okay? Over here, at least you have a way to think if you are right or wrong. Question number 10 also has a double angle identity, and we want to know what is theta, that we make cosine double theta equal to cosine theta. Okay. So I can remove cosine 2 theta. Here's what I was talking about. I have more than one identity for cosine 2 theta. It's not preferable now because I can see here cosine theta. It's not preferable to choose anyone that has sines, because maybe I will need factoring, taking greatest common factor. I don't want too much of trigonometric functions. So I think this is the ideal one now, to cut it short for you. So I'm going to remove this and write 2 cosine squared theta minus 1 minus cosine theta equals to 0. I think I am seeing a factoring over here. Minus cosine theta minus 1 is equal to 0. I can start 2 brackets. One of them, I'll split this into 2 pieces. Okay, 2 cosine theta and cosine theta. I need the bigger one to be minus, so I will put the minus 1 over here and the plus 1 over here. So I have 2 answers, looks like that. So 2 cosine theta equals -1, and for this one, cosine theta equals 1. So cosine theta equals to negative half. Where on the unit circle? And here, where is cosine theta equals to 1? Cosine theta is equal to negative half. Then when is cosine negative أصلا? Cosine is negative over here and over there. And cosine is negative half in cosine is the x, right? Cosine is negative half here at 2 pi over 3, and cosine is negative half at 4 pi over 3, صح? So 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3 for this piece. 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. Sorry for the camera. And 4 pi over 3. When is cosine theta equals to 1? Only at 0. So I have 3 answers for this question. 2 pi over 3 and 4 theta is equal to, and 4 pi over 3 and 0. Okay. It's preferable to start solving using gradients. I don't mind degrees. بشوية يعني. Try to deal with radians as well. Question number 11. It says, okay, cosine double theta minus sine theta. You can pause and try. Cosine double theta. So I think this one I would preferably use one of the cosines that has, where is it? One of the cosines that has sine theta, which is, okay, I'm not gonna bring it, I lost the paper, which is preferably I would change this to 1 minus 2 sine squared theta. Okay, so I can have a couple of sines, I can deal with them instead of having cosine and sine. Okay. If I multiply everything by -1 just to keep this as positive and just switch their places, this would be 2 sine squared theta. You can still deal with a negative. Plus sine theta minus 1 equals to 0. I will open 2 brackets and set them equals to 0. 2 sine theta and sine theta. I want the bigger one to be positive, so I'll put this one as positive because it's going to be multiplied by 2. And this one is negative. So sine theta from here is equal to half, 0 product property. Either this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. Sine theta equals to -1. When and when? When is sine equal to half? It's in quadrant 1 or 2. Which angle? Sine is equal to half. Sine is equal to half over here, and sine is equal to half over here. So again, pi over 6 or 5 pi over 6. Here, theta is pi over 6 or 5 pi over 6. And when is sine -1? Sine is -1 at 3 pi over 2. So your answers are pi over 6 or 5 pi over 6 or 3 pi over 2. You have 3 answers. Okay, another one, question number 12. Tan 2 theta minus, open bracket, tan 2 theta times tan squared theta is equal to 2. So I would definitely think of changing tan 2 theta over here, for example, 2, or I would first take tan 2 theta as a common factor. Tan 2 theta as a common factor, this will be 1 minus tan squared theta equals to 2. And if you change this to double angle identities, you will get 2 tan theta over 1 minus tan squared theta. 1 minus tan squared theta equals to 2. Now I can start seeing that this can cancel this, and I'll be left with 2 tan theta equals to 2. So tan theta equals to 1. Where is tan equal to 1? أولا tan is positive in quadrant 1 and in quadrant 3. And it's equal to 1 when I have the same for x and y, root of 2 over 2. So here, a negative root of 2 over 2 and negative root of 2 over 2. So at pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. So theta is equal to pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. Okay, this is the answer for this question. There are different, I think, type of questions, like question number, solve each equation. I think question number 24 says solve each equation. I'll solve a couple of them and I am done with today. solve each equation. Question number 24 gave me 1 minus sine squared theta minus cosine 2 theta equals to half. You have to start linking different types of identities together with each other. Anyways, here a double angle identity is very obvious, right? So I think I can change this to the one that is sine. Sine, it has 1 minus 2 sine squared theta. So I can have them all in sines. So 1 minus sine squared theta minus, open bracket, 1 minus 2 sine squared theta equals to half. 1 minus sine squared theta minus 1 plus 2 sine squared theta equals half. This one will cancel this one, and I will see 2 minus sine squared theta. 2 minus 1 is going to give me sine squared theta equals to half. And then sine theta is equal to positive or negative root of 1 over root of 2. Or sine theta is equal to positive or negative 1 over root of 2. Which is positive or negative root of 2 over 2 after rationalizing the denominator. This question did not give me an interval from 0 to 2 pi. So I should write all the possible answers when sine is equal to root of 2 over 2. In all the quarters, I have sine is equal to root of 2 over 2. Over here I have a sine root of 2 over 2. هنا negative root of 2 over 2, negative root of 2 over 2, root of 2 over 2, negative, sorry, هنا كمان negative, هنا positive. So how will I write that? I would definitely find a shortcut because it's endless and this keeps repeating everywhere, and they didn't mention only on the unit circle. So I can just write that theta is equal to pi over 4 plus n pi. And what is n? N is an integer. So I mean pi over 4, this one, plus pi معناها دي 3 pi over 4 plus pi معناها دي plus pi or minus pi's again if I'm going clockwise. All of them will have a sign that is root of 2 over 2 or negative root of 2 over 2. So this is how I'm going to express it because they didn't mention the interval this time. Oh, question number 25. Over here, 25. Cosine squared theta minus 3 over 2 cosine 2 theta is equal to 0. Okay? Where's my pen? Okay. So I can see a double angle identity over here. We go for the one with cosine because I have cosine squared هنا. It's going to be 2 cosine squared theta minus 1 equals to 0. This is the easiest one here. So you're going to get cosine squared theta minus 3 cosine squared theta plus 3 over 2 equals to 0. These would give me a negative 2 cosine squared theta equals to negative 3 over 2. So cosine squared theta is equal to 3 over 4. Cosine theta is equal to positive or negative root of 3 over 2. Where are the cosines that are root of 3 over 2? Root of 3 over 2 for the cosine is here, the ones that have over 6, pi over 6, and the negative 1, 5 pi over 6, and a negative 1 here, 7 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6. So how will I write that? In here, I would just write that theta is equal to pi over 6 plus n pi, where n is an element of z. Okay, means any integer, positive or a negative number, but an integer. 26 sine squared theta minus 1 equals cosine squared theta. Okay, I can think directly when is, sine double theta, sorry. Double theta is equal, this is cosine. Let me check that question. No, both of them are squared. I don't need double angle identities here, by the way. Anyways, I can think when, okay, without thinking, because I can definitely know that the answer is pi over 2, because sine squared theta minus 1 here, 1 squared, minus 1 would give me 0, which is cosine squared theta. Only at pi over 2 this will happen. Anyways, I can change this to 1 minus cosine squared theta. If you still remember Pythagorean identities, minus 1 equals cosine squared theta. So I cancel this with this. If I bring this here, I'll have 2 cosine squared theta equals to 0. So definitely cosine squared theta equals to 0, and definitely cosine theta equals to 0 if I root it. And when is that happening? That will happen only at theta equals to pi over 2. This will happen only at theta equals to pi over 2. So I will write pi over 2 For number 26, I would write pi over 2 plus n pi. Not only at pi over 2, I'm sorry, it's in pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. هنا كمان cosine is 0, up and down cosine is 0. So pi over 2 plus pi, plus pi, plus pi, and so on, n pi. I think I have one more question. Yeah, I have one last question regarding solving. Okay, which is question number 27. Cosine squared theta. My camera is not stable at all, and I am suffering over here. So cosine squared theta minus sine theta equals to 1. Okay, this doesn't need double angle identities. This needs Pythagorean identity. I'll just go to 1 minus sine squared theta minus sine theta equals 1. This one cancels this one, and if I take sine theta as a common factor, this is my only choice here. I'll get minus sine theta minus 1 equals 0. So there's an option that sine theta equals to 0 or negative sine theta minus 1 equals to 0, which means negative sine theta equals to 1 or sine theta equals to negative 1. When is sine theta equal to negative 1? It's in the 270, if you still remember. So this is 3 pi over 2 plus 2n pi, because it's only one, not every pi. Over here at 3 pi over 2, sine is negative 1. This is the only answer. So 3 pi over 2 plus 2 pi, because I want one whole round, or minus 2 pi. Not a pi. It doesn't repeat itself every pi. And here sine theta is equal to 0. When is sine theta equal to 0? Sine theta يعني is y. Sine theta is equal to 0 and the right and the left here. Because I don't have an x. I didn't move. I mean, I didn't have a y. هنا وهنا. So I can write 0 plus n pi. Okay, plus n pi. Why? 0 plus n pi. Or I can just write n pi. Means every pi. N is an element of z. So if I use 0, it's 0 pi. 1, it's 1 pi. 2 pi. 3 pi. And this is true over here at 0 and pi and 2 pi and 3 pi and 4 pi and 5 pi and the negative ones. So n pi would satisfy what I wanted to say over here. I hope I made it easy for you, and I love you all. From your favorite YouTuber, Teacher Sarah. Bye.